if you wanted to work with other Bosch teachers or do something with them, you can click into the Bosch Best, and it's going to ask you to sign up for it. And then and so you can't do it right away because it's a closed group. So what will happen is it will ask you for permission. We'll ask you for permission, and you have to sign in. And then within a short period of time, we'll give you access into the Bosch Best community. And so in here, you can post lessons, you can post ideas, you can start discussions. And what I was going to share with you is a teacher at Cody High School is going to start uploading some of her high school math lessons in here and start sharing them with people. And so her and I have been talking recently, so she could share lessons, high school math ideas and projects with other high school math teachers, or just any teacher that's in the Bosch Best. When you create a discussion, you just give it a title, write out a little discussion into it. You can choose a file for an image. You can open it for comments, or if you don't want anyone to comment on it, you can close that, and then you just click publish. And the next thing, you can share lessons. In the fall, if you did a lesson using the app, you can share it directly in here. Right now, we only have the ability of taking a lesson from here and sharing it back into the app, and I'll show that in a moment. You can share resources, which would be a title. Is it an image you want to share, a video you want to share with other recipients? And then publish, save, and again, you can close or open up the comments. And so you have those features. And also, if you go back to the home, and I'm going to open this all the way up. When you go to the home, you can access any of the lessons we put up there. And again, like I said, in the fall, you'll be able to take lessons from the app and share them into this side of the platform. This is all open source. If you don't want other people to see it, but you only want the Bosch people to see it, you can share it just directly to the Bosch group. You can add lessons in here. You can browse by grade, key terms, materials. So if you said, I have duct tape, what are 2 lessons I could do with duct tape? Or if I have duct tape in a 2-liter bottle, so you can match those up like that. And like I said, we're adding lessons every day in here. So that will just continue to grow. And so what I'm going to show you now is, if you look on my left, you can see the app. And did you want me to go over the app a little bit before I show you how to take lessons from here and drop them into the app? Okay, so in the app, on the application side, one is that you want to start by adding a class. Now, if you've never done this before, it's going to ask you to add a lesson. And so to add a lesson that you have, there's a couple things you could do. You could just start by going over into here. If you don't want to create your own lesson right off the bat, you could come over here and let's say, and I'm just going to pick anyone, a self-watering planter. I click it and I click share to lessons, as long as you're signed in with the same on each. So I'm going to share it. It says it's been shared. You'll see down here it's not there yet, but if I refresh the screen, you'll see down here at the bottom, self-watering planter. So you can take any lesson from the community side and put it into this side. When I take a look at it, what I'll see is and I'm going to expand the screen. You'll see I have a project summary of how to do this. You'll see the key terms. You'll see the different questions that I'm asking. And you can edit this however you want. If this is not the way, if this right here isn't the way that you want it to be, or you want to change the summary or take out some of the key terms, you're allowed to edit it any way that you want. So I click edit, and then if I want to change the questions, I can X them out. I can add in my own questions. So whatever your question is, I click add, and I can drag that into one of the phases. In the fall, because we talked about how we're going to be releasing the new app, these phases, you'll be able to name them whatever you want. So if you wanted to name it hypothesis and then evidence, conclusion, you could do that. You could name it step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. If you're doing a book, any type of, I don't want to call it but a book report, but if your students are going through and talking about a book that they just read, you could put, have your opinion here. So this could be called opinion, main character, character traits, and your final thoughts. So you'll be able to name those however you want. Now I'm going to click Save Lesson. Now my lesson has been saved. I go back at any time. If you're not familiar of where you are, just go click this and go back to the dashboard, and you'll see your classes and you'll see your lessons. If you want to add a new class, you just click Add New Class, and I'll call this Bosch Best number 2, create class, and you'll see it's right here. Once I create the class, you can see I have 0 students in this one. I come right up here, I give them a class code, and when you give them the class code, they type, so they'll sign in. When they sign in, you'll see all their names appear, and then it will say accept all students, and now they'll be in your class. When your students first sign in, the very first time that they sign in, and I'm going to go over here to the profile, my profile, you're going to have a school ID, you will, in your profile. So check whatever your school ID is, because it will ask your students what that school ID is so that it matches you with that, with those students. So I'm going to go back to the dashboard, and I'm going to actually open this up a little bit. And so now we had that brand new self-watering. You've uploaded students to your class. The very first time they come into the school or into CrossBraining and sign in as a student, we need to match them with the school ID, and that only has to happen once. And so when you log in as a teacher, or because your account is already set up for a teacher, you'll see a school ID there. You can change it, name it whatever you want, but it will have to match with the students. And so now we've associated that student with that school. Then what we want to do next is we want to associate them to classes. And that's where this class code is over here, where they click a class and they're given a code. And so those first initial steps are just getting them to join a school, which is your school, and then after that, forevermore, it's just joining classes. Okay, I see another question. Let me go ahead and see what that is. So the ID isn't needed, but the code is, I thought, okay, you said you've got it. Great, fantastic. And we have, just so you know, we have tutorials on all of this, these short little tutorials on everything that I'm talking about, and I'd be more than happy to send them your way. And at the end of the webinar, I'll give you my email address and you can request it, and then I'll just send you the tutorial. So that's good. Let's move this over here. All right. So now that they're in the class, we can assign them a project. And so in here, I'm going to go ahead and click this class right here, and I'm going to assign a lesson. And I'm going to assign them that self-watering planter lesson. And so now it's been assigned to them. And now here are my students, because with the code, they've been inserted in here. There's a number way of putting them in groups. If you want them all to create a video and narrate it, just put them into groups of 1 and randomly generate it like that. If you don't want it that way, you can move them around. into these spaces. I'm going to go back a screen and then actually do that again. So if I want to do assign a lesson, self-watering plants, if I want to just drag them into groups, personalize the groups, I can do that. So I can, there's a number of ways you can do this. I could randomly generate them into groups of 3 and still move them around. It's however you see fit. Next, I'm going to assign them jobs. This one is where this is what really pushes that collaboration and critical thinking and communicating. What we're doing, and I typically randomly assign them, but you can assign specific roles to certain students and move them around. So since they're creating a video, we need to make sure that during each of the phases that they're capturing exactly what you want them to capture, narrate exactly what you want them to narrate, and to answer those questions thoughtfully. And this, what this does is it puts the ownership on them. So in this case, Kate has to make sure that whatever the narration is for that first phase that I called plan, she needs to make sure it's fantastic. My hope would be all of them work together on creating that narration, but Kate is the gatekeeper. And Kate's also responsible for making sure the reflection questions in the performance phase, again, you'll be able to name those whatever you want, but she's the gatekeeper. And so when I go into, and I'm going to go ahead and finish this project so that this makes a little bit more sense. Now I can see they're in groups. I have all these icons that are grayed out, but if I go in there, this is the video editor. Again, I'm going to go over this a number of times, and I hope I'm not beating this down too hard, but that you'll be able to name these whatever you want, these phases. But after you name them, Kate, this was assigned to Kate to make sure that whatever video they went and got, whether it's Chromebook or iPad video or GoPro video or iPhone video, that Kate, whoever gets the video and captures that moment, we got to make Kate's the one that says, yep, this is good enough, or this is great. And then during narration, whoever's responsible for that in that phase is, we want them to collaborate, but we also want somebody to be responsible, to have the responsibility to say, yep, it passed. This is great. And then even during the reflection questions, someone's making sure that those reflection questions are great. So again, we want them to collaborate on all of it, but we want gatekeepers making sure that these jobs or tasks are all carried out. So when I'm going to go into, I'm going to go back into my dashboard, I'm going to show you an existing project right here. And what you're going to see here is you're going to see the footage. And so let's say it was Kate's job to make sure it was great footage. She's going to go and hand select. In my case, I said, I want to see your plan. Well, I can see right away that they have plans in place right here. And whoever did the narration, I want to make sure that they're using these key terms that I've provided them with. And so I'm going to go ahead and press play so I can hear it.
We have been commissioned to build bird feeders for our school playground. Here are our plans.
And so that's acceptable. Then I go over in here and I see the word seeds has been used. I also am looking through here. I see engineered and engineering. So they are native birds. I can see that they're using the terms. I can play it.
We engineered recycled items to build our bird feeders, and some groups designed 3D printed parts. We researched the right seeds to use to attract the native birds.
And so while they're building this out over the course of however long your project is, you also have access to see that they're getting it done. So you'll see the icons are blue, indicating they've captured, they've narrated, and in this little icon we're changing because it doesn't really show that it's reflection, but it's almost like instead of handing in paperwork, they're handing in task. and it's all being handed in to these guardrails that you set in place. So I've told them, like during this part, I want to see a fix that they made. And so I called it polish. And you can see right here, we redesigned this feeder so the seeds went down. So I know that they're addressing that guardrail or that phase in showing me the polish.
We redesigned this feeder so that the seeds went down a chute into a seed bowl. One group built a tube to distribute the seeds into the feeder.
One thing to also note is I have 5 seconds of video here, 3 seconds here, 4 seconds here. I tell my students, that means you have 13 seconds roughly to say this. And I don't want you to be long-winded. Just get straight to the point, use those terms. And then what you'll see in this one right here, I'm going to go ahead and X out, and I see there's a question. It splices all that video into one video here. So it takes all three, puts them into here, cuts all the background noise out, and it only takes in their narrations. What the app allows you to do the first time you ever use it is, after you've created your lesson and you got it and all these are grayed out, you can go into any of these groups, click it, and you capture the project and upload it. And you can even, I strongly advocate that even you throw in exactly what you want them to say, so you can set this high standard of the narration. So they get used to knowing that you only are going to accept really good narration, and that you point out to the teachers or the students that, like, for instance, cohesion, you can point out that cohesion is being used. I think it's in this one right here. So you can point out, like, I'm checking to make sure you use these terms, molecules being used. And so to walk them through that experience and say, this is how you narrate. And when you get to reflection or the reflection questions, that you can even walk through that with them and say, I want really well thought out answers to the reflection questions. And then what happens is you can copy that to all the groups. And so after the whole project, they have all this footage that you've collected and uploaded, and you can send it to all of them and just have them narrate that experience. And after you do that like 2 or 3 times, typically what happens is the student says, we want to capture our own. So now we're thinking about the I do, we do, you do of explicit instruction. You might say, okay, well, I'm not going to let you get all of your own footage, but I'll let you capture your final product, or I'll let you capture some of your own evidence. So there's multiple ways the app can be used. But one of the things that I also wanted to go back and talk about is that once they have this all done, they can click and choose music. It's all, the sound is all pre-selected, like the level, they can't change any of that. And then they click watch, and then it splices everything together.
We'll use magnets, water cover, plastic paper, and straw to make a molecule model. When two or more atoms bond together, it's called a molecule. When water molecules bond like magnets, they are attracted by negative and positive poles. Cohesive is what makes molecules stick together. The water molecules move around together, and when they touch, they combine. You can even blow them and they stay together. There are more molecules in this drop of water than there are stars in the observable universe. They are really small, but they are there.
And so what I want you to also see in that is that lesson is right there. So I was able not only to push that, but I was also able to push like the key terms, that lesson overview that the student summary sees, that all gets pushed over. You'll also see that each video from each phase got pushed over the student video got pushed over. And then on our side, we add some teacher resources to it. So we actually put a teacher guide in it. Now, you don't have to do that. We just did that. So if they want like a paper copy of it, so that's available as well. But you can see how the two play together, how the app side and the community side can play together. So what you can do, if these were all blank, you could say as a class, what footage, I have footage, I put it into Google Drive, I've shared it with you in Google Classroom. Let's figure out what footage we want. Because really what we want to do in this beginning, the first couple times they use the app, is to get them to understand why they're using the app. To get them to understand that we're giving them an opportunity to own their learning, to contextualize the learning experience, to pick out video that matches with narration, with these terms. And in the end, what ultimately is going to happen, and I'm going to sign in as a student now, is the hope for your classroom would be that this is a student that I'm in Mrs. Walker's class, that I have all of these in my portfolio. They go home that night, they get on their, their parents, you can get on their phone and they can sign into CrossBraining right on their phone or on a laptop or whatever device they have at home, and they can pull up these videos and show their parents. And their parents can see what the lesson was about, the description. They can see the jobs that the student had. They can go in here and look inside their project and see like they must have just got started. And so it gives them, the parent, an opportunity to have a window inside of that experience as well. We'll go ahead and wrap that up. Thank you for joining us. And again, reach out to us if you have any questions. I hope you have a fantastic summer and the rest of your school year is great.